Hello, thanks for tuning in. My name is Keaton Weber. I'm the Wheatland wildlife biologist. This presentation will go through the proposed 2024 hunting seasons for all of the herds that fall within the Wheatland Biologist District. So I'll be going through everything within the Wheatland Wildlife Biologist District, starting off with pronghorn, hunt areas 11, 34, 38, 103, and 111. Deer hunt areas 15, 59, 60, and 64. That will be mule deer and whitetail deer. Then we'll move on to elk, hunt areas 3, 6, and 7. Bighorn sheep, hunt area 19. Pheasants, hunt areas 7, 8, 9, and 11. And then we'll also do wild turkeys at the end, and I'll cover statewide changes with turkeys. So a little background on our season setting process. We start things off with data collection and analysis throughout the fall and winter months. So this includes our ground classifications for deer and pronghorn. It also includes harvest data collection, so check stations, CWD samples, things of that nature. This also includes our winter survey, our flight surveys. So our aerial classifications by helicopter or any other aerial surveys we might do in the winter. This also includes analysis of that data, so plugging this data into models, looking at it at a fine-tooth comb, finding out our fawn ratios, buck ratios, things of that nature, and really looking at how our herds are performing and how the hunting season went. Then we move on to regional review, so we consult with wardens in the area, other biologists, how things went, and we come up with some tentative proposals to maybe bring by the public through our scoping period. So then we go into our public scoping period where we have landowner meetings, public meetings, really gauging how the fall went for the local publics and getting feedback on maybe some big changes that might be coming down the pipe and stuff like that. Then we move into department review. So then we take all that feedback from them and come up with our proposals. Those then go to our wildlife administration, and then we get to where we're at now once they are approved by wildlife administration, which is our public meetings and commenting. So our commenting period is now open, and these proposals are now out for the public to look at, and then we take these to our official public meetings and present them as well. After this, we go into our regional and department review and analysis of public comment. So we're really looking at how those landowner meetings meant, all the public comments that came through the commenting process, and making any fine-tune adjustments to those proposals or final changes. They then go to the commission in April to be approved, and that is the season setting process. So we'll first start with the pronghorn herd units within the Wheatland Biologist District. First up will be the Chalk Bluffs pronghorn herd. This is hunt area 111 in the far southeast corner of the state, southeast of Cheyenne. The Chalk Bluffs pronghorn herd is managed on a population objective of landowner and hunter satisfaction survey. And that is with a goal of 60% satisfaction in each category. So 2023 landowner satisfaction was 73%, and 2023 hunter satisfaction was 82%. And this is about average with the last couple of years. Typically, we see pretty high satisfaction in both of these categories within this herd unit because it is predominantly private land, which is also why it is based on a landowner and hunter satisfaction survey. The 2023 fawn ratios for this herd were 22 fawns per 100 does, which is well below our 5-year average of 57 fawns per 100 does. This low fawn ratio for 2023 is likely attributed to a couple things. One, we likely did have some winter mortality due to the above normal winter severity in 2022 through 2023, but also additionally and more likely this low fawn ratio might be from our low sample size. So we only classified 133 animals within this herd unit in our classification time frame, and that likely is also a driver of having 22 fawns per 100 does. So if we would have been able to classify more within this herd unit, we could have seen a little bit higher fawn ratios. And we're short on personnel this fall, and so unfortunately weren't able to classify as much country in this herd unit as normal. Our 2023 buck ratios were 31 bucks per 100 does. Our 5-year average is 48. We're trending towards the lower limits of our buck ratios the last couple years. We managed for 30 to 59 bucks under a recreational management strategy guideline. So we're still within that management strategy guideline with 31 bucks per 100 does. However, with this consecutive years of poor fawn production and drought, we expect to see a little bit lower buck ratio as we're just not recruiting the animals into the population as you typically would with a higher fawn ratio. So as we have consecutive years of poor fawn ratios, we'll continue to see these buck ratios probably decline or stable. And since we're in the recreational management strategy guidelines, we'll continue to monitor those buck ratios really closely in the coming years. So for our proposal for the 2024 season is no change to the Type 1 license, still providing that opportunity with 150 licenses under that Type 1. Since we are still within the buck ratios of a recreational management strategy guideline, we feel we don't need to reduce any opportunity there with our any antelope Type 1 license. However, with the consecutive years of poor fawn production, we're looking to reduce a little bit of pressure on our female portion of the population and take out that Type 1 opportunity to hunt doe or fawns from October 15th through December 31st. And then no change to the Type 6 for 50 licenses. We'd like to have that still there. There's still some damage concerns with pronghorn congregating on pivots within this herd unit, and so we utilize these Type 6 licenses to address those damage concerns through hunting opportunity. On average, we've been killing or harvesting 36 females on average each year, and so with those Type 6 licenses, that's not enough harvest to negatively impact this herd on a population level. So pretty low Type 6 quota there. We'll continue to monitor that and see if we continue to have damage concerns as pronghorn populations decline. Next up is the Hawk Springs pronghorn herd unit. This is hunt area 34. The Hawk Springs pronghorn herd has a population objective of 6,000 pronghorn. Our 2023 population estimate is 4,400 pronghorn. This herd continues to steadily decline and has been declining for multiple years. And I'll speak to that a little bit more in the following slide. Our 2023 fawn ratios were 22 fawns per 100 does, and our 5-year average is 32 fawns per 100 does. So these are extremely low numbers and concerning. We continue and have seen poor fawn ratios in this herd unit for multiple years now, likely driven by consecutive years of drought. This last year was an exception to that drought. We had a great spring and summer as far as precipitation and moisture goes. And unfortunately, we had a very above normal severe winter this winter of 2022 through the spring of 2023, and likely had a lot of increased stress and forage value to these moms, and likely a lot of these adult females did not carry their fawns to term, or they aborted at some point, or had stillborns and just weren't able to keep their fawns on the ground to survive. So that's likely what drove our 22 fawns per 100 does in this herd unit. Our buck ratios in 2023 were 33 bucks per 100 does, 5-year average of 37 bucks per 100 does. This herd with that continued poor fawn recruitment, we expect to see these buck ratios start to lower. So we are a little lower than our 5-year average. However, we're still within our recreational management strategy guidelines of 30 to 59 bucks per 100 does. So as we continue to have poor fawn recruitment, we'll probably continue to see our buck ratios lower and get lower and lower to that 30 mark of our lower limit of recreational management strategies. But we'll continue to monitor those buck ratios and address our type 1 licenses as those change. For our 2024 season proposal for Hawk Springs, don't propose any changes to the type 1 license because those buck ratios are still within recreational management guidelines. We don't want to reduce any opportunity there within the type 1s. However, the type 6s, the females, we will like to reduce some harvest pressure there, reduce those licenses from 50 to 25, and then also reduce the season length by 1 month. So have that close on November 30th. We have reduced the type 1s by 40% since 2019 due to poor fawn recruitment and some extreme spring snowstorms and excessive mortalities that those caused. We've also reduced the type 6s now by 92%, and so we've drastically reduced harvest pressure on this pronghorn herd to try to help it start increasing and going in the right direction. However, it'll take some better fawn ratios over consecutive years to do that. We still have a few limited damage concerns along the Platte River with pronghorn on irrigated and croplands, so we'll continue to have a type 6 license there, and hopefully those licenses can help address those damage issues as we go forward. Moving on to the Iron Mountain pronghorn herd. This is hunt area 38. The Iron Mountain pronghorn herd has a population objective of 13,000 pronghorn. The 2023 model population estimate was about 7,000 pronghorn. Again, this is another pronghorn herd that has struggled with poor fawn recruitment over multiple years from prolonged drought conditions, and we continue to be below our population objective within this herd unit. The Iron Mountain pronghorn herd had 2023 fawn ratios at 34 fawns per 100 does, well below our 5-year average of 49 fawns per 100 does. We likely had poor fawn recruitment this year due to the above normal winter severity conditions throughout 2022-2023 winter, and those adult females were just not in great condition to carry those fawns to term, or they either aborted or had stillborns at the time of birth due to their lack of nutritional condition due to winter severity. So hopefully we see a rebound in that this next coming year. Our 2023 buck ratios were also low at 25 bucks per 100 does, well below our 5-year average of 44 bucks per 100 does. This herd's also on a recreational management strategy of managing for 30 to 59 bucks per 100 does. And so seeing our buck ratios at 25 this year was a little bit concerning, and it's likely due to that above normal winter severity conditions throughout 2022, 2023, and we likely had some winter severity loss within this population, particularly in our yearling bucks. However, hunter success was still high, 86% in 2023. It's a predominantly private land herd unit, and we've reduced licenses by quite a bit throughout previous years, and so there's a lot less hunters on the landscape, and most people have permission on private land, and so therefore they tend to have pretty high success with that private land access. For our 2024 hunting season proposal for Hunt Area 38, we are proposing to reduce the type 2s by 100 just to address that poor buck ratio we saw this year within our classification data due to that winter severity. So just a slight adjustment in male harvest in that type 2 license. Type 1s will stay the same, and type 6s will also stay the same at 25. We've drastically reduced the type 6s over the years and doing everything we can to reduce harvest pressure on the female portion of the population as this herd unit still stays below our population objective. We'll move on to Dwyer pronghorn herd. This is Hunt Area 103. The Dwyer pronghorn herd has a population objective of 4,000 pronghorn. Our 2023 population estimate from our model was about 4,700 pronghorn. This herd was up for objective review this year in 2024, and given the previous year's population estimates and population metrics over the previous years, we will continue to have that objective of 4,000 pronghorn for this herd unit and continue to monitor that population. So right now we are right at the upper limits of our population objective, and we have been just at those upper limits the previous 3 to 4 years. So we'll continue to monitor, and this objective will stay for the next 5 years. Fawn ratios in the Dwyer pronghorn herd in 2023 were very low, at 24 fawns per 100 does, and our 5-year average at 36 fawns per 100 does. Similarly to our other pronghorn herds in southeast Wyoming, we've really struggled with poor fawn production, and we can see that in our 5-year average at 36 fawns per 100 does. Ideally, again, we'd like to see that number above 70 to grow the population. Our exceptional low this year of 24 fawns per 100 is also similar to other pronghorn herds in southeast Wyoming. And although we had good spring and summer moisture, we had that very severe winter this last year. And those females, those adult moms, likely didn't carry to term or aborted. And those fawns just really struggled to survive or even get carried to term. So poor fawn survival again for 2023. Our 2023 buck ratios at 39 bucks per 100 does, a little above our 5-year average of 36 bucks per 100 does. So we're well within our recreational management strategy of 30 to 59 bucks. Hunter success was 92% this year. Again, similarly to other pronghorn herds, we've drastically reduced licenses throughout this herd unit in the last 4 or 5 years, and it's predominantly private land, so we tend to see success a little bit higher these last couple of years with those limited licenses and limited access. Most folks that have this license have access to private land and are pretty successful. So for the 2024 season, we propose to keep the type 1 status quo at 250 licenses and no season date changes. Because those buck ratios are well within recreational management guidelines, we plan to just take advantage of those opportunities for hunters. We have reduced the type 1 since 2019 by 55%. So we've made a lot of cuts, and we're hoping that we see those license cuts benefit this population and see an increase in future years. Likewise, with the type 6, we've reduced by 85% since 2019. However, we're still planning to reduce those again this year just to give this herd every chance to rebound and reduce harvest pressure on those females within the population. So reducing from 50 licenses down to 25. Moving on to the Meadowdale pronghorn herd, this is Hunt Area 11. The Meadowdale herd has a population objective of 5,000 pronghorn. This year we were at 6,000 pronghorn. at our population estimate. So we're right at the upper levels of our population objective. However, as you can see, this herd has steadily declined over multiple years. And just like other herds in southeast Wyoming with pronghorn, we struggled to see fawn production and recruitment into the population for consecutive years due to drought conditions. 2023 fawn ratios for the Meadowdale herd were 41 fawns per 100, just above our 5-year average of 37 fawns per 100 does. So with that 5-year average, we're still struggling to recruit fawns into the population, even for our 41 fawns per 100 this year. That's still concerningly low and certainly not growing the population, and we've seen that reflected in our population models and population estimates. Our 2023 buck ratio is 37 bucks per 100. Again, just above our 5-year average of 34 bucks per 100 does. So we're trending down towards our lower limits of our recreational management strategy of 30 to 59 bucks. And hopefully we'll continue to see fawn production increase within this herd and keep that buck ratio high. If this buck ratio continues to trend downwards, similarly to surrounding pronghorn herd units, we'll look at addressing that type 1 license opportunity. However, hunter success was extremely high at 93% within this herd unit this year, likely attributed to, again, similarly to other southeast pronghorn herds, in that it's private land dominated. Most people have access, and hunter success has been high. And with those reductions in licenses, there's a lot less harvest pressure on the landscape, and so we anticipate to see that hunter success increase slightly. Looking at the 2024 season proposal for Meadowdale, our type 1 license structure will stay the same, with those buck ratios well within management guidelines. We plan to keep that hunting opportunity there. However, for our type 6, we plan to make a few minor adjustments. Looking at the quota for the type 6, reducing that license by 50 to reduce that harvest pressure on the females, and we do not have the amount of damage concerns throughout the herd unit on irrigated croplands that we have historically. Since this population has declined, we have seen a reduction in those damage problems. However, we still do have a few of those damage problems, and in order to address those, hopefully through hunting opportunity, we're looking at extending the type 6 season through November 30th, so that those damage concerns can be taken care of through hunting opportunity, and so that season will be open to mitigate those issues. Moving on to deer, we'll go through mule deer and white-tailed deer. First up will be the Goshen Rim mule deer herd. This is hunt area 15. The Goshen Rim herd has a population objective of 20,000 deer. The 2023 population estimate was about 6,100 deer. Our model's showing that this herd has been steady for the last handful of years. However, we still continue to see poor fawn production within this herd, and population is likely steady or slightly declining. Our 2023 fawn ratios for the Goshen Rim herd were 60 fawns per 100 does, well above our 5-year average of 46 fawns per 100 does. We expected to see an increase in fawn ratios within this herd due to the spring and summer moisture, and we're happy to see that at 60 fawns per 100 does. This is the highest fawn ratio this herd has seen since 2015, so it's really telling on what spring and summer moisture can do for fawn survival. Our buck ratios continue to still be high and outside of our recreational management strategy maximum of 29 bucks per 100 does. Our 5-year average is 30 bucks per 100 does, so we're right at our 5-year average. This herd has really high prevalence. Our 3-year average of CWD prevalence is 39%. It is a small sample size of 87, but this herd has historically been above 30% CWD prevalence for over 10 years now. Although our buck ratios are still high, we continue to not see older age class males within our classifications within this population, likely due to that high CWD prevalence. Looking at our 2024 proposal for this herd unit, we have no plans to change the non-resident region T quota or the type 1 license structure. It'll still be a general season, October 1 through October 14th, and the non-resident region T quota will stay at 400 licenses. We are proposing a few changes for the type 6 license, that is reducing the quota by 100, so from 250 down to 150 licenses, and then also changing the limitations to this license to make it valid on private land only. We continue to have damage concerns and situations throughout this herd along the Platte River corridor and on irrigated croplands within the hunt area. So having some sort of doe license structure there for mitigating those damage concerns will still be in place. We want to limit where those licenses are valid, so making them valid on private land will direct those licenses to address those damage concerns and also appease some localized areas where people have continually harvested females on public parcels, and looking to make this license more damage focused and reduce harvest pressure on the females. Moving on to Laramie Mountains mule deer herd, this is hunt areas 59, 60, and 64. The Laramie Mountains mule deer herd has a population objective of 20,000 mule deer. This objective was up for review this year in 2024. However, given the historic performance of this population, we'll continue to keep that population objective of 20,000 mule deer. When this objective review is back up again in 5 years, we'll have a lot more additional data from focal herd survival data and causes of mortality and a few more population estimates, and that'll provide us with a lot better information to address this objective at that time. Our 2023 postseason population estimate is about 9,400 mule deer. Again, this herd has steadily declined over the last multiple years, but has somewhat steadied over the last couple years, and hopefully with the continued hopefully we have continued good fawn production as we saw this last year, and hopefully this population will continue to rebound as we move forward. In 2022, we conducted an aerial siteability flight. This is a really robust population estimate from 30 hours of flight time in a helicopter, and that population estimate came at about 11,700 mule deer, so not too far off of where we are with our current integrated population estimate you had seen on the previous slide of about 9,400 mule deer at our postseason population estimate. So pretty telling that these population estimates with aerial siteability are a little bit more accurate, and our IPM is likely running a little bit lower, but nonetheless they're not too far in terms of confidence levels, and so this is reassuring that we have this really robust population estimate in 2022. Similarly to our Goshen Rim mule deer herd, the Laramie Mountains herd responded really well to the spring and summer moisture as well as far as fawn production goes. Our 2023 fawn ratio was 69 fawns per 100 does, again well above our 5-year average, and also the highest fawn ratio we've had since 2015 within this herd. Our buck ratios continued to be high as well here, with our 2023 estimate at 28 bucks per 100 does and our 5-year average at 37 bucks per 100 does. This herd has also had long-term high CWD prevalence. Our latest 3-year average of 561 samples is 19%. You might notice this chronic wasting disease prevalence for this herd has declined a little bit. We've typically historically been between 20 and 25% prevalence, but as we see this herd decrease in population, as CWD is a density dependent disease, so as we have lower densities of deer, we expect to see that CWD prevalence lower a little bit, and we have certainly seen that. So our 3-year average is at 19%. We have a really large sample size. As you might remember, we did mandatory CWD sampling in 2022, and so we continue to grab a lot of that data from previous year and give us a really good sample size of 561. We continue to see the high buck ratios for the same reasons as our Goshen rim mule deer herd. Long-term high CWD prevalence, we struggle to even classify and find older age class bucks within the population. So these high buck ratios are supportive of a CWD prevalence that we have had in this herd, in that a lot of these bucks within these high buck ratios are younger age class bucks and not older age class bucks. Looking at the 2024 season proposal, we propose no changes overall for this herd unit. Our non-resident region J quota will stay at 750 licenses. Last year we did reduce this quota by 100, so we'll continue to monitor that in terms of hunter crowding on the limited public lands throughout this herd unit. As far as type 6s go and other license types within this herd unit, those will also be status quo. We'll continue to have some type 6 doe fawn harvest to mitigate damage throughout the herd unit. Damage issues have declined as this population has declined as well. However, we still like to have those licenses there for opportunity as well as mitigating damage concerns as they come up. On average, we're harvesting about 90 females with this license structure that we currently have over the past 5 years. And so that is not enough to negatively impact this population as far as population levels go. And so we'll continue to have that opportunity there and doe harvest there for damage concerns. So as I mentioned in previous slides, the Laramie Mountains herd was one of 5 herds throughout Wyoming that was selected to be a focal herd. This is a very large-scale, robust collaring effort that's going to provide a lot of information to us and help us better understand why this herd is not performing the way it did historically. So we've got bucks, does, and fawns collared throughout the herd unit, and this was launched in November of 2022 and will continue on for 5 years. And some of the other herds that included are North Bighorns herd, the Upper Shoshone herd, Sweetwater herd, and the Wyoming range. So with these collars on the landscape, we're really trying to tease out more about survival within the Laramie Mountains mule deer herd. Specifically, this herd is one of 2 herds that was selected to have a cause-specific mortality component. What that means is we're trying to get to mortalities within 24 hours of getting that notification and really trying to tease out why these deer are dying and what they're dying from. So learning more about disease, specifically chronic wasting disease, learning more about habitat and body condition, predation, learning really more on which portion of the population is struggling and what they're struggling from. So these collars will really help us understand survival across each cohort of the population, that being bucks, does, and fawns. Additionally, outside of that survival data, we'll learn movement patterns, habitat use, use of habitat treatments that we've done in the past, things of that nature. So there'll be a lot of additional information we can learn and outside of that survival data. So I wanted to touch base a little bit more on the specifics of those collars. So our sample size is 80 does, 30 bucks, and 100 juveniles marked in each herd. So as these individuals die, we'll replace and maintain those sample sizes within does and bucks. So each year we'll capture in the late fall, early winter to get our sample size back up to 80 does and 30 bucks. Our 100 juveniles, those are smaller collars, so they'll fall off every spring in May. So we'll get juvenile survival for the first 3 years. The 80 does and 30 bucks collars, those have a little bit better battery life, and we'll maintain those for 5 years. The 100 juveniles will be every year for the first 3 years. Currently, we're in year 2, so our first round of captures was in November, and our second round was just this last November into early December. And so we'll continue to do these captures for the next 3 to 4 years and maintain these sample sizes. So looking at Laramie Mountain's specific survival, this graph shows overwinter survival for the Laramie Mountains herd and each cohort, so bucks, does, and juveniles. So if we look down at the x-axis, this starts in December and goes through the end of May. So this is the time frame where we calculate overwinter specific survival, and then percentage would be on the y-axis here. So looking at the green line on the above, we had 86% survival our first winter with our buck collars. Our orange line, we had 79% doe survival, and our juveniles, the purple line, at 66% survival. Given our really severe winter, our way above normal winter severity this year, we certainly did not see the survival that other parts of the state had. We had some of the best survival in the state as far as mule deer go. And so this was really great to have collars on the landscape during a severe winter to really understand and get an understanding of how well our deer are surviving during a severe winter. So specifically, we're really happy to see about 80% doe survival. In most areas with mule deer, you'd be happy to see 80% overwinter survival or annual survival on your does, your reproducing portion of the population, even on any year. So to have that high doe survival on a winter severe year is really telling and really promising. Our juvenile survival is also high, and our buck survival is also high for overwinter survival. And I'll show comparison to other herds within the state, those other focal herds, in the next slides. So now moving on to statewide buck survival within our focal herds, I wanted to present this to really show how well the Laramie Mountains did on a winter severe year comparative to other focal herds throughout the state. So first, looking at the x-axis down here on the bottom, you'll notice that this is from January 1 through the end of November. So this is going to start at January 1 because this is when majority of all the herds had collars on. So this is the same capture crew that did captures throughout the state on each one of these focal herds. And so although we had our collars on in December, some of these other herds did not get their collars on until January. So for standardization statewide, this graph will do January through the end of November. So this will also include harvest through the hunting season in these survival estimates. And that's why they'll be a little bit different than our overwinter survival that I showed in the previous slide. So comparing the Laramie Mountains buck survival to other places in the state, we were at 69%, higher than most other herds throughout the state that were in this focal herd program with collared buck survival. You'll notice the Wyoming range obviously had the most severe winter this year and suffered the most winter severity loss within their bucks. And so this is really telling on how the mule deer within the Laramie Mountains survive, especially on a winter severe year comparative to other places. So now moving on to adult doe survival. Again, we see Laramie Mountains at the top at 78%, right aligning with 77% with Upper Shoshone, and really pretty close to Sweetwater and North Bighorn's adult doe survival as well. But when we compare to the Wyoming range, we certainly saw a lot better survival than they did, and they had a lot more winter severity in southwest and western Wyoming than we saw here in the Laramie Mountains. Again, this is the same graph, so January 1st through November 30th. At 78% survival, we're sitting pretty good at in any year, even outside of a winter severe year, you'd be happy to see 80% plus doe survival. So to see 78% survival in these other herds in the 70s as well on a winter severe year is really telling and really good knowledge to have, especially going into the season setting time frame, to really have a good understanding on how these populations weathered that severe winter last year. Moving on to statewide fawn survival within the focal mule deer herds. So you'll notice right away, again, Laramie Mountains was leading the pack at 70% survival, just about at the same survival as North Bighorn and Upper Shoshone. Sweetwater suffered a little bit more at 38% survival with the juveniles, and then comparative to Western Wyoming, they suffered 100% loss with their collared juveniles. One thing to note too with this graph is it's January 1st through the end of May 31st, and that is because, again, these juvenile collars fall off in the month of May. So they are not on throughout the summer, but this is really good overwinter survival data for our juveniles. Again, 70% survival, really telling and really good to see on a winter severe year, and will be great to compare to the winters as we have continue to have these collars on in the coming years as well. We are still working on summarizing the causes of mortality in this project so far. Hopefully we'll have a finer scale percentage of each cause here soon, like very soon. However, for now, the main things that we have been seeing is malnutrition, such as winter severity or poor habitat, things of that nature. We've seen predation from coyote, mountain lions, and also bobcats. Obviously, disease is also a component, such as CWD, and then we did have some bucks that were harvested in the fall of 2023. I also wanted to take the time to update on the Laramie Mountains Mule Deer CWD Local Working Group. This is a local working group we created in 2022, consisted of 11 members from Platte, Goshen, and Laramie counties. And the goal of this group was to formulate recommendations to the department on CWD management specifically for this mule deer herd. So over the course of the year, we met with this group and worked with this group to come up with recommendations to implement within this herd in regards to CWD management. So this group took a deep dive into the department's CWD management plan and the options within that plan and what to implement within the Laramie Mountains mule deer herd. The first one being reducing artificial sources of concentration. The group voted unanimously to support this implementation in this local herd. So this would include providing dumpsters for people to dump their carcasses at for disposal, so we do not get CWD positive carcasses getting distributed and put out on the landscape and potentially transmitting that CWD to new areas, excluding excluding salt and mineral sources for ungulates. We're working with the UW grad student that is working on a mechanism to reduce or exclude ungulate use on salt and mineral sources. And then this would also include working with private landowners to fence out silage pits and things of that nature where we have groups of deer congregating and feeding from the same area and have high transmission rates and see high prevalence. Option number 2 would be hunter harvest management. This includes increasing mature male harvest and also decreasing deer densities in hot spot areas where we know we have high prevalence. Option A there, increasing mature male harvest. This would be your November buck mule deer season to target those areas and that portion of the population that has the highest transmission rate and highest prevalence rate, which is your mature males. So this would be a November limited quota deer season in order to reduce prevalence within the herd unit or stabilize prevalence within the herd unit. And the group was 8 in favor and 3 opposed to this option. The other option is decreasing those deer densities in hotspot areas or areas of known high prevalence. This group voted no unanimously. In order to do this deer density reduction in a localized area, it would take, because this area, this hunt area is, or this herd unit is predominantly private land, the group was very concerned about exposing certain landowners to a deer density reduction, and we respect that, and so we'll follow forward with not moving forward with this recommendation. Moving on to 3 is regulatory and agency actions. The group again unanimously voted yes to continue regulations on carcass disposal, carcass transport, feeding of ungulates in the name of disease transmission, education outreach, and continue research on CWD, so including our focal herd collaring project. Learn more from other states, communicating on CWD management, what is working, what is not working with other states, and also would include things like mandatory CWD sampling. So these recommendations we took to the commission meeting in July, and kind of laid out to the commission which options that this local working group approved, and specifically what we'd be going forward with. After that commission meeting, we heard public comment, and after a long deliberation and consideration of those public comments, we decided to not move forward with a mature male harvest or a November buck mule deer season within this herd unit. We found we did not have broad public support for implementation of a mature male season in the name of CWD. And so we'll continue on with reducing artificial sources of concentration, providing dumpsters for carcass disposal, trying to exclude concentrations of deer on feeding and salt and mineral sources, and then also continuing with mandatory CWD sampling on some years if we see the need in our surveillance time period, and exploring education outreach, research, continuing those things. Moving on to Southeast Wyoming whitetail deer herd. This includes hunt areas 15, 59, 60, 61, 64, 70, and 74 through 81. So this includes every deer hunt area within the Laramie region as far as whitetails go. Because whitetails are throughout this Laramie region are predominantly on private land in the riparian areas, this herd is managed on a hunter satisfaction survey with a goal of having 60% hunter satisfaction. This herd was also up for objective review in 2024. Given that these whitetail herds are predominantly private land, we'll continue to have that hunter satisfaction survey objective within this herd unit. Our 2023 hunter satisfaction was 48% satisfied, which has steadily declined over the last recent years. And our hunter satisfaction on average for 3 years is 53%, so we're slightly below our 3-year average. These last recent years, those reductions in hunter satisfaction might be attributed to localized areas having some EHD outbreaks, and hunters probably seeing a lot lower densities in those areas from those EHD outbreaks. So we'll continue to monitor those specific areas, and hopefully this hunter satisfaction will rebound as those recruitment years tend to refill those EHD die-off time periods. We have a few minor changes for hunt areas 75, 76, and 77 proposed. That is closing the type 3 any whitetail deer season on November 30th, and then letting that license roll over to a doe or fawn license for the month of December. And then also a slight license increase in hunt areas 78, 79, 80, and 81, increasing that type 8 doe or fawn license to 125. For that, hunting access has increased a little bit in that area, in those hunt areas, and so providing a little bit more opportunity to harvest some whitetails is what we're proposing there. Moving on to elk, we'll go through 3 elk herds, including the Rawhide elk herd, hunt area 3, Iron Mountain elk herd, hunt area 6, and then the Laramie Peak Muddy Mountain elk herd, hunt area 7 and 19. So first we'll go through the Rawhide elk herd. This is hunt area 3. Because this herd is predominantly private land, it also has a population objective based on a landowner and hunter satisfaction survey with a goal of 60% in both of those categories. Our 2023 landowner satisfaction was low at 35%. Our 2023 hunter satisfaction continued to be high at 67%. We've seen pretty low landowner satisfaction the last 3 years, and we're increasingly starting to see more elk damage problems within this herd unit, and those concerns are probably driving that landowner satisfaction down a little bit. And we propose a few changes this year to address those increasing population of elk and increasing of damage concerns. So we're proposing quite a few changes this year with Rawhide elk herd. For the general license, we're continuing to run that archery season from September 1 through September 14th and having that rifle season open September 15th. However, we're planning to remove the restriction north of Highway 26 and making this area standard throughout the hunt area. And so that general license in hunt area 3 will close. We're proposing to close November 30th, and then allowing that general license to be valid for cow or calves only December 1st through January 31st. So that is a change for south of Highway 26 and north of Highway 26. Now, both of those areas will be standard for the entire hunt area for any elk season for September 15th through November 30th, and then that general season being available for cows December 1st through the 31st. We're also removing the Type 6 license completely and introducing a new license type, the Type 8 license. This will be valid August 15th through January 31st and is unlimited for cow or calf. So to address those damage concerns north of Highway 26 and any concerns south of Highway 26, this will be valid area-wide and hopefully allow for that season to be open to address these damage situations as they come up. And on the unlimited portion, this also is a change as far as total elk being able to have taken by an individual in a year. Currently, as it sits, the Type 8, currently as it sits, an individual is only allowed to have 3 elk licenses or harvest 3 elk in a year. This Type 8 will be allowed to have multiple. So for example, an individual could have 5 plus or as many Type 8 licenses as they want. So very, very liberal season here to address problem elk throughout the herd unit. Lastly, new for 2024 will be non-resident region elk quotas. For the non-resident region this will be predominantly eastern Wyoming, and proposing an increase. Originally, this quota had been set at 500. That'll be changing proposal to be 600 licenses for the non-resident Region E elk quota. Moving on to the Iron Mountain elk herd, this is hunt area 6. This herd has a population objective of 1,800 elk. Our 2023 model estimate was about 3,500 elk. We're way above objective in this elk herd unit and have been for multiple years, and will continue to allow really liberal seasons and harvesting as many cow elk specifically as we possibly can. In the spring of 2023, we conducted an elk siteability survey. This included 37 flight hours in the helicopter to provide us with a really robust population estimate of 4,800 elk within this population. And this is well above objective of 1,800 elk, obviously, and is obviously also higher than our population model is running. This is likely a more valid estimate of population of elk within this herd unit at 4,800 comparative to 3,500 that our model estimate is running. In order to bring the Iron Mountain elk herd down closer to objective, with the goal of trying to do that in the next 5 years, we need to increase our female harvest by 600 annually. On average, we're killing about 300 cow elk within hunt area 6. We're hoping to increase that by 600, so a total of 900 elk harvested, 900 cow elk harvested over the next 5 years to bring us down to objective of 1,800 elk. In order to do that, we've implemented a few different strategies to increase cow elk harvest by that much. One is Chapter 56 permits. So these are permits issued to landowners in order to increase harvest on areas where access is difficult. So this allows landowners to harvest cow elk using these Chapter 56 permits under their direction. In 2022, we did this with department removal, and we harvested 129 additional cow elk. In 2023, so far as of February 2024, we've killed roughly 200 additional cow elk. So it's a lofty goal. We have to increase harvest substantially within this herd unit over the next 5 years, and so we'll continue to try to drive this population towards objective with additional cow elk harvest. Our 3-year average CWD prevalence is 9% with a large sample size of 430 samples. We do have a few changes proposed for the 2024 season here. Looking at the Type 1 and Type 4 licenses, reducing those quotas by 25 in each. These licenses are the only licenses that are valid on the limited amount of national forest within the herd unit. And to hopefully provide a little bit better quality hunt here, we're looking to reduce hunter crowding on this area on the national forest and allow for still a little bit of quality of hunt for these license type holders. As for the Type 6 license, we're looking to changing that to the new Type 8 license. Again, this is an unlimited license and will allow for a hunter to have more than 3 elk licenses. Currently, individual is not allowed to have more than 3 elk licenses. This Type 8 will be an exception to that rule and will allow for an individual to have multiple or more than 3 elk licenses. And this will be valid for cow and calf only, obviously valid off national forest. So these are primarily there for the entire season, August 15th to January 31st, so that there's always cow elk licenses available for anyone to go kill a cow elk. Another small update within this herd unit, we deployed 120 collars on cow elk. This is within Hunt Area 6 and Hunt Area 7, only in the southern portion of Hunt Area 7 that overlaps with our deer collars that are on in Hunt Area 64. So again, it's cow elk, 120 collars, 60 in Hunt Area 6, 60 in Hunt Area 7. We completed this in the first week of March of 2024, and these collars will be on for the next 3 to 4 years. We'll maintain these sample sizes throughout those years, and the goal is to better understand competition between elk and mule deer. So having collars on our focal herd here presents the opportunity to really learn more in an area where we try to drastically reduce an elk population, that being Hunt Area 6 here. Are we going to see a positive response in our mule deer? Are they going to start using larger home ranges? Are they going to start using habitats they historically haven't in the last couple of years? And then we'll also learn obviously some movement data in terms of harvest pressure. So lots to learn here, and we'll continue to monitor these collars throughout the coming years. We'll move on to Laramie Peak elk herd. This is hunt areas 7 and 19. This elk herd has a population objective of 5,000 elk. Our 2023 postseason population estimate is about 12,000 elk. We have been way over objective in this elk herd, and the season structure is structured to maximize elk harvest and has been for multiple years. We have quite a few changes proposed this year for the Laramie Peak elk herd. First, starting off with eliminating the Type 4, Type 6, and Type 7 license. This is ultimately from introducing a Type 8 license, an unlimited license. Now there are going to be some season date changes with this as well. So the same private land limitations will follow along with the new Type 8 license. So that Type 8 license will be unlimited from August 15th through October 14th during the early season to primarily address damage concerns and damage situations throughout the herd unit. And this will be valid cow or calf valid on private land in Albany and Carbon counties, also valid in all of Platte County, and not valid in Converse County. That Type 8 after October 14th, so starting on October 15th, that unlimited cow-calf elk tag will be valid through December for cow or calf valid off national forest. So again, these Type 8 license types will be available to address damage during the early season instead of the 4 and 6s being open during that time. And then after December 31st, we will look to address damage concerns with our new Chapter 34 auxiliary licenses instead of the Chapter 7, except for the Type 7 license. We'll also be changing the Type 4 and Type 6 quotas. So the Type 4 will reduce from 1,200 down to 800, and the Type 6 will be reduced from 2,250 down to 1,000. And again, these are going to open on October 15th and go through December 31st. This year, we'd like to shop some potential changes for the 2025 season. So again, these aren't proposals for this year. This would be proposals for 2025. And those changes would be a Type 1 and Type 2 change for Hunt Area 7, specifically looking at splitting out the Type 1 and Type 2 licenses for Hunt Area 7 into a Type 1 hunting season from October 1 through October 31st, any elk, and then a Type 2 season for the month of November, November 1st through November 30th. The goal of this would be to potentially move hunters around and spread out hunting pressure, and ultimately with the goal of increasing elk harvest. This would also get away from our overlapping deer season opener, which is October 15th. So currently, the way these elk seasons open in Hunt Area 7 overlap with Hunt Area 64 deer seasons. This would potentially get away from that same opening date for deer and elk. So nevertheless, this is something to think about throughout the next year. This is potentially a change we would be proposing next year for 2025 at this time. We'll move on to bighorn sheep. I'll go through the Laramie Peak bighorn sheep herd unit. This is Hunt Area 19. Due to this herd unit being in predominantly private land and limited public land access, this is managed on a limited opportunity objective, and also since it is a smaller population of bighorn sheep. It was up for objective review in 2024. We proposed no changes to that limited opportunity objective and don't see that changing. These management objectives that we manage for this herd is one, a 5-year running average of greater than 75% hunter success Our current 5-year average is 90%. Number 2, have a 5-year running average of harvested rams between 6 and 8 years of age. Currently, our 5-year average of harvested rams is 8 years old. And lastly, number 3, document at least 3 times more adult rams in the population than the number of licenses issued. Currently, we're issuing 10 licenses for rams, and in 2023, we observed 34 adult rams observed. No proposed changes this year for bighorn sheep in Hunt Area 19. Last year, we did increase the quota from 8 to 10 licenses. That was due to the 90-10 split between non-residents and residents. So last year was the first year that we had 90% of our bighorn sheep licenses go to residents and 10% of those licenses go to non-residents. With that, we had to increase from 8 to 10 licenses to hit that percent requirement. And that seemed to go over very well. We still had high success. We had 90% success in 2023. So hunter success is still high with that license increase, and things went great this year with absorbing those 2 additional licenses within the hunt area. So we'll continue to stay the status quo within this herd unit. Moving on to game birds in southeast Wyoming. We'll start off with pheasants. Our 2024 Springer special hunts are October 11th through October 31st, with youth only days October 12th, 20th, and 26th. The Glendo pheasant youth only days will be November 3rd, 10th, 17th, and 24th. We do have one change for the 2024 season for Hunt Area 7 on Table Mountain WHMA. That is changing from an opening shooting hours from 1/2 hour before sunrise to 8 a.m. And this change is to allow for waterfowl hunters during the second split of waterfowl season to have waterfowl hunting to themselves prior to pheasant hunting starting. And depending on the time of year within that second split of duck season, it will allow up to 30 minutes to an hour and a half once daylight savings time happens for those waterfowl hunters to have before pheasant hunting is allowed. So to balance waterfowl hunting and pheasant hunting on Table Mountain WHMA, we're proposing to change that opening shooting hour to 8 o'clock. This will also standardize with our other WHMA shooting hour openers, such as Springer, to 8 a.m. The other red changes on this table you see are just the annual date changes to overlap with those waterfowl seasons and make sure things close at the same time. One additional change is also to our Springer permitted hunters. This year for Springer permitted hunters, we're proposing to change the folks that have those permitted permission slips for a certain day will need to check in by 8 a.m. instead of 9 a.m. This is to hopefully get folks there on time, and also on the back side of that to allow standby hunters on instead of waiting until 9 a.m. We also have some pretty major changes for fall and spring turkey seasons. Starting off with fall turkey seasons here. So moving forward, we were proposing to go with one statewide hunt area. This is something we shopped last year, started shopping to the public last year statewide, and heard some pretty positive feedback to move to a standard simplified one hunt area for the state, with the exception of still having type 3 licenses for those counties that have overpopulated areas of turkeys, high densities of turkeys, where we still would like to target and reduce those populations in those areas. So this table here shows an elimination of all the other hunt areas in the state and goes to one statewide hunt area with those season dates for general, October 1 through December 31st, with an archery season of September 1 through September 30th. And then also for the type 3, same season dates and a quota of 750 for those certain counties with high densities of turkeys. So moving forward to spring wild turkey 2025, also reflecting the statewide change to one hunt area, and those season dates being April 20th through May 31st. And then also having the type 3 limited in certain counties with high densities of turkeys and with a quota of 700. There is also a season date change of April 19th closing date for those. So shorten up that season, and it also still is opening on April 1st, and we'll continue to put harvest pressure on those turkeys a little bit earlier to hopefully suppress females breeding in the spring, and these type 3s will still continue to be valid in certain counties only with one statewide general hunt area. A few other changes to our fall 2024 and spring 2025 turkey seasons. These are also ideas that we had shopped throughout the last year to the public and garnered feedback on these changes. And so one that I've already mentioned is going to a one statewide hunt area. Number 2 is evidence of sex requirements. So evidence of sex for turkeys will be no longer needed to be attached during transportation. And then lastly, a permit will still be required for yellowtail WHMA, which is within the Cody region. Again, thanks for tuning in. I hope this presentation was useful for you and really answered some questions for you. If you have any comments, please submit them by March 29th at 5 p.m. You can submit these comments online, electronically, or you can write them and mail them in to the address below here. Again, these comments go straight to the commission and are really important. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please reach out. But official comments, please submit them through these avenues. I greatly appreciate your time. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to reach out. You can reach me by phone or email. And thank you again.